you can't see inside of a rumen, you can't count microbes, but you can monitor and measure what's happening in the manure. Hey, welcome back to That Ranching Podcast, where you join us around the kitchen table to talk about real topics and real opportunities for folks in the ranching industry. I'm Trevor Greenfield, founder and co-owner of Riomax, and joining me this morning is Daryl Paskewitz and Twain Manning. Daryl, on the side, ranches in the short grass country of southwest Saskatchewan. He was in ranching long before he joined with Rio. Twain, on the other hand, has worked on his grandpa's feedlot since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. So thrilled to have these folks joining us at the kitchen table. We're going to answer the question, what visual differences or visual results can you expect to see or observe as you start using Riomax? Twain, help us out. Like, what's the first thing people are likely to see?
Well, one of the biggest things we talk about, we often joke, Trevor knows his shit here at Riomax, but as a company, it's something we definitely focus on, is looking at manure. Typically within the first 2 to 3 weeks of starting on the Riomax program, guys will start to see a change in their manure. What that looks like is, especially through winter, when that manure tends to stack up, you'll see it more of a pancake batter consistency, and actually year-round, observing the size of the stems of the grass coming out the back end of the cow is a noticeable difference in stem size. So less stems, smaller stems left over in the manure, meaning that cow's processing her feed a little bit more efficiently.
So, Daryl, he's talked about what we see, but why does that matter?
That is a direct indication of the digestive health of that animal. We're seeing on the outside what's happening on the inside. If that rumen and full digestive system is operating at peak capacity, it's going to dissolve the majority of everything that passes through it. And we know that a cow doesn't get to live on a very lush diet. It's forages that are stemmy. There's a lot of fiber, lignin, things to break down. And that's the indicator. Is it breaking it down, or is it coming through, like you said, stacking up, where we're not getting the digestion and the dissolving that we want to be seeing?
That's excellent. Thanks, Daryl and Twain. And really, these are like a dashboard on your pickup to see how are we moving the needle and what does it mean. So another one, probably one of the first visuals after manure, is looking at body condition or even just hair coat. Twain?
Yeah. If you look at the body condition of a cow on Riomax, typically what we find, especially on poor quality feed, is they're able to maintain, if not even gain a little bit of weight on a poor quality diet. So looking at both body condition as well as hair coat, the cattle slicking off more, not having so much dead hair. Maybe, Daryl, you want to touch on that? No, guys typically associate like a reddish tinge to the hair coat with a copper deficiency, but do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when you see black cattle, that's not uncommon that if you do get a copper deficiency, you'll see them going red tinge. But further than that, the hair coat in general, when the cows aren't doing well, if they're thin, you're just going to see a poor hair coat on them. And when we get trace mineral status built up, and it happens very, very quick within seconds or minutes of the animal consuming the Riomax tub, we're already getting them trace elements. They're highly absorbable, highly bioavailable, and they're getting across the digestive wall and into the bloodstream, and we'll be making differences very quickly. You would see hair coat changes inside of 2 weeks. Very common. We get the comments from our customers.
So to your point, Twain, you're going to see hair coat differences likely before body condition. Yeah. But we're just trying to walk you through this. So manure is first, and then you're likely to see hair coat, and along with that goes body condition, and then contentment. I mean, we hear this a lot where people say, my cows just seem more content. Well, that's, you might say, well, I can't make money out of contentment, but can you? Like, what does that mean?
Well, back to what you were asking Daryl about, what does that mean? What's going on inside the cow is happy cows means those cows are meeting their nutritional requirements. And we see that it might be when you're feeding hay, the cows just aren't rushing the gate and they're not waiting for you bellering every day. But besides that, even out on grass, it's a harder thing to measure because you're not often sitting out there watching the cows. But to note when the cows are laying down, it's common if you have Riomax cows versus a non-Riomax cow in a side-by-side comparison, you'll notice the non-Riomax cows spending a lot of time out grazing versus when the Riomax cows are laying down just chewing their cud.
So when a cow is out grazing, Daryl, what's bad about that versus the one laying down?
Well, they're consuming your feed, aren't they? The first thing is it's either the feed or the pasture that they're on. You've got a limited supply of that. We want to be seeing cows maximize the digestion of every mouthful that they're taking and use as little of it as possible and still get the performance, body condition, milk production, everything that they need to, but not be consuming more of your feedstuffs than they absolutely have to.
It's really a double whammy, because when they're not out grazing, they're not using your feed, but they're laying down content, and that energy is going to fetal production, body condition, overall health. So it's a double whammy. And the cows do the talking. How many times have we heard guys say, they don't come meet me at the gate, they're not chasing the tractor, when I roll hay out, they just lay there and look at me. Yeah, they end up eating it, but they're not hungry. They're content.
It is a funny one. Happy cows is something we hear a lot, and I think anyone that joins the Riomax program, if we're talking to them and we mention happy cows, I can't tell you how many guys have said it. It's like, sounds kind of weird, like what is happy cows? As a rancher and someone, knowing your cows, what your cows look like when they're happy and content versus not, but time and time again, we've had it where guys are like, oh yeah, happy cows, whatever, and then a few weeks in or a month in, you call them and they're like, I don't know how to explain it, but the cows they're just happy, which I think leads us right into the last point, and arguably the biggest financial impactor we have is the feed and the forage savings. So be that cows, they might be getting fed in a bale ring, or you're just rolling a bale out to them, feeding a TMR ration, or if you're out grazing. Now, it's easier to measure. Oftentimes when you're feeding them every single day the same amount of pounds, quite easy to observe them backing off their feed by 15%. But that's still happening when we're talking about standing forage, isn't it?
It is. The science works exactly the same, whether they're grazing in July or whether you're feeding them in January. So the science works the same. And everything we've talked about, from the manure, hair coat, body condition, contentment, all kind of comes together in feed savings. And that cow is telling you, I'm getting by just fine on less groceries. And that's where the feed savings is, a huge part of the impact we make on the ranching industry, with a tub that pays for itself. Daryl, as far as we talk about feed savings, or we talk about that they're getting by on less out on pasture, but what does that practically look like for a rancher?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the number of times that I've had customers get started on the program and then maybe talking to them a number of weeks later, and they're saying, we're putting out 10 bales of hay, and you wouldn't believe it. We're coming out within a few days of being on the tubs, within a couple of weeks, that they're starting to leave hay behind. We had hay laying all over, had to start cutting back, and we're cutting back to 9 bales, cutting back to 8 bales, because they're seeing that the cows are starting to leave hay. They actually chose self-regulate down. They're not consuming the amount that they were prior getting on the tub.
It's a good point you make, because a lot of ranchers, and I'd be the same, are skeptical about cutting back how much they feed them because they don't want to short them, and I get it. But when the cows do the talking, they're telling you they're getting by on less because they're squeezing more out of every mouthful. Twain?
Yeah, I was just going to say on the forage savings, so a guy might wonder, well, okay, I don't bale my pasture, so how do I measure that? And there's a couple key ways. Probably the most noticeable, I would say, be glad of your guys' input, but the most noticeable is during a drought. When a guy normally, if they're looking, I know I had a fellow in kind of central South Dakota a couple years back when they had a real bad drought, and he called me in, it was November, and he said, listen, my neighbors were pulling their cattle off in August and starting to feed them hay. And he said, we run similar country, similar stocking rates. We're pulling our cattle off in October. So 2 months of insurance policy, basically. They got that much extra grass. 2 months they didn't have to feed hay. That alone paid for his year-round of Riomax. But on a good year, when we've got lots of grass and what have you, it's out there for some guys. It looks like, well, we're just going to leave that and we're going to have that extra grass, give that ground. It's almost a bit of rest because you could potentially run 15 or 20% more cows out there, but you're letting that ground recover and rest. Or for some people, they look at it as an opportunity to potentially keep back some more heifers or buy a few more cows to ultimately increase the production of that land. But Daryl,
So well, I was just going to say it is a harder one to measure than feeding hay in the middle of winter. But what you've just said is exactly right. Either you can get more days, which means feeding less hay, or you can increase your carrying capacity, and both of them come back to an efficiency measurement. But be glad for your thoughts, Daryl.
No, one thing that comes to mind is that not everybody grazes this way, but we've had a number of customers that graze in smaller paddocks, and they know that it's only X number of days, and they're finding that their same size paddocks, one after the next, that suddenly they're getting another couple days on. Instead of moving once a week, every 7 days, they're going out 9 or 11 days. They notice it right away.
I guess the point here is we're not saying you need to buy more cows or rotational graze or do whatever. The point is that we see forage savings no matter what the time of year, no matter what the type of forage. There's just different ways to measure it. And in the theme that we're talking about is what are the visuals or how do we observe the signs of Riomax working? And that would definitely be playing into it. And coming back, I'd say probably the main one, you said I know my shit. I'm probably obsessed with my shit more. I don't know if I know it, but I'm obsessed with it because I was trained probably close to 25 years ago that you can't see inside of a rumen, you can't count microbes, but you can monitor and measure what's happening in the manure. And to me, it's just like a big old dashboard telling me how that cow is doing. Well, that wraps us up for this morning. As always, we're true to our purpose, and that is driving profitability back to rural North America. Unapologetically, it's who we are. It's what we do. We trust this has been meaningful for you. And don't forget to tune in next Thursday morning from the kitchen table on That Ranching Podcast. Good morning. Have a great day.